West Ham United have revealed their strategy that will be implemented in the event of relegation. I'll cut to the chase, the headline if you want. It involves keeping David Moyes. Now, there are actually three main parts to it. That's, as I say, just probably the main, most irritating part of it. What I'll do is I'll detail the three main parts to that in this video. And if the video drags on a bit, we'll sort of react to it a little bit more tomorrow. Or if I manage to cover it all in this video, then maybe tomorrow we'll take a look at the comments that you leave underneath, basically a little comment section underneath the video here. Okay, so let me just get the wording absolutely correct here. A key source has made it clear to Claret and Hugh on 3 occasions that there will be no change of management now or, indeed, were we to face the drop. Okay, so I mean that's really clear. That's really clear. That means on 3 occasions, somebody at a high-profile position at the club has leaked the news that we're retaining David Moyes this season. So I think we all sort of accepted that. We know that there's no way that anybody else is coming in this season. It's the last bit, or indeed should we drop. That means if we drop down into the relegation zone, stay there and get relegated next season in the Championship, we keep David Moyes as our manager. Now, this is not the first time I've dealt with this. As you know, I had a look into his record at Preston and that sort of thing. It's the fact that it's been confirmed 3 times now, and it actually coincides with the other information about player contracts and the future of certain players at the club, and that's really what I want to get into here. Firstly, here's something we didn't really cover on this channel, and I think the news sort of slipped under the radar because we were playing Thursday, Sunday, and that is that all the players signed in the summer, and indeed, I believe Danny Ings, who was obviously signed in the winter window, all signed relegation clauses in their contract. Now, I'm not privy to what that means numerically in terms of the monetary value of those contracts, should they be reduced down. I don't know. However, I am aware of contracts in the past that this current board have given, and the relegation clause previously has been 50%. So I think it's probably fair to assume it's going to be in that sort of area. So whatever, you don't need to do the maths, right? If you're on £100 a week, you know what 50% of that is. Now, I find this really, really interesting. First of all, I was amazed that anyone would sign such a contract. However, and I don't know if this is the case, if this is the standard procedure at other clubs. However, the more I thought about it, I thought, put yourself in the position of Lucas Paqueta or Scamacca, to name the 2 highest profile summer signings. You get invited in for talks with West Ham, your club, accept the bids and the bids from West Ham. If you didn't know who West Ham were, you'd go and take a little look, and you think, wow, okay, they finished sort of 6th year before last, 7th last season. They're in Europe again. They were in Europe last season, and they reached the semi-finals. At this point, you're discussing it. You can imagine in terms of the contract, when it's being handed over to you, and go, oh, by the way, just that little bit at the bottom there, there's a little clause that should we get, I mean, come on, look, we're West Ham United, look, 60,000 seater stadium, back-to-back European campaigns, finish 7th, finish 6th. We all know. I wouldn't be surprised if the conversation went along these lines. We all know we're not going to get relegated, but we have to put it in there. It's some financial stuff. It's some small print stuff. Now, I'm not suggesting that players don't read the small print. They will go in there with representatives. There'll be legal representation. But my point is, at the point where they sign these binding legal documents, I don't think that Scamacca or Paqueta even thought for a second they were joining a club that was even going to remotely be involved in a relegation scrap. Also, I'd imagine at those meetings, things were probably said along the lines of, look, we're not only going to buy you, Mr. Paqueta, we're going to spend another £150 million as well. We're bringing in Scamacca, we're bringing in lots of players. We're bringing in a couple of players from Paris Saint-Germain. When you start to factor that in, that would have been the conversation. I can understand it from somebody from the outside coming in thinking, oh, well, look, they're investing. At the point where we sign these players, at the end of the last window, at the end of the summer window, it's worth remembering that only Manchester United and Chelsea in world football had spent more than West Ham United. From the outside looking in, West Ham United were every inch an ambitious looking club. So you sign it, right? I think that's just what happened. Yeah, of course we'll sign that. Yeah, 50% drop. Yeah, whatever. It's not going to happen, is it? We're going to be in Europe. Well, we still might be. We still are in Europe, technically. But you know what I mean. So that's... I think that is probably very, very sensible financial management. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think, as I say, probably in tomorrow's video we'll discuss which of those players would be hanging around. I do really want to delve into in tomorrow's video the situation with regard to keep retaining David Moyes in the Championship. It's got a lot to say about it, and that's a video on its own. But we'll deal with the players as well tomorrow. And the other thing, the other third part of the strategy in the event of us dropping down into the Championship is that we are not going to offer any more contracts between now and the end of the season. I think that's probably quite sensible. Now, what that actually also means is players whose contracts are running out, or there might be an option that we can implement. Lanzini would be a good one. Lanzini's a great example. Lanzini, his contract runs out at the end of this season, but we have the option of 2 additional years. I think there's something similar with Ben Johnson's contract. Soufal's certainly the same. Ogbonna, I'm not sure there's the option, but you know we may want to offer him a new deal, another 1 year. Because I think when he got that horrific knee injury, we offered him another year on top of that. So those players are going to be left in limbo. I sort of understand it, I really do. But what this does highlight, what this absolutely shows, is if you've got a strategy when you're recruiting players, in the event of dropping down into the Championship, in the event of relegation, if you've got a strategy for not renewing contracts, because obviously the monetary value of those contracts can be very, very different if we drop down to the Championship, and then if you've also got a strategy for which manager you're going to have in the Championship, make no mistake about it, you are preparing for life in the Championship, and this is what I think we're doing at the moment. I think there's a hope we'll survive. I don't believe for a second that what people say David Sullivan wants us to get relegated. I don't believe that for a second. It makes no sense. He cannot sell the club for the same value. As I've said before, Kretinsky's option to buy the shares is not an obligation to buy the shares. Kretinsky will not buy the shares at that same value. There's no financial benefit in Sullivan allowing the club to go down. However, so he might well have a desire to keep us in the Premier League, but a desire to keep us in the Premier League is very, very different to having an ability to keep us in the Premier League. So Martin might want to. I'm certainly not convinced at the moment that he has the skills to keep us in there. I think that's quite good financial management. The relegation clauses, don't have a problem with that at all. But I look at how we've been allowed to slide into this situation when it was quite clear that we were in a massively precarious situation in November, and we've still been allowed to slide into this. I find that complete and utter incompetence. You've only got to look at Unai Emery. I know I mention him a lot, but I mention him a lot because it's a really good example, right? They had a look at it, and this was obviously the Aston Villa board here. And I think in many respects we had these sort of relegation face-off, didn't we? It was Moyes against Gerrard. Moyes won. We also had another one, if you remember, another relegation face-off, which was Lampard against Moyes. Moyes won. And both of those clubs after that ditched their managers, didn't they? I guess we get to see if Everton's will work or not. We don't know. For Aston Villa, it certainly did. They hired Unai Emery. They weren't relying on someone being available. They went and played Villarreal, €6 million to get him out. And obviously Aston Villa, even though they were in a similar situation to us whenever they did that, I don't know, was it in October or something like that? Then that's going to be a situation and certainly a time when any new manager coming in feels that he's going to have enough time between now and the end of the season to work their magic, to bring some players in. And I do wonder, and I do think it's incompetent, our owner has not looked at that and looked at Aston Villa's situation and think, oh, you know what, I got that wrong. I should have acted, I should have done something. He's certainly armed with that information. That's not secret information, right? That's really not. That's out there in the public domain. It's quite easy to see what Aston Villa's. But still, we've carried on. We've carried on this route. We've carried. I often say the Titanic. We've carried on heading to the iceberg. We've got an advantage over the Titanic. We know that the iceberg's there. But we're still heading toward. We're just not changing course at all. And so I do wonder what's going on with all of this. And I know, so it's interesting to see the relegation strategy. As I say, I've been talking for 10 odd minutes now. We'll deal with because I really want to get my teeth into this David Moyes stuff, particularly his record at Preston, particularly the fact that the board might think. I'll say the board. I think David Sullivan. I'm not sure anyone else having any input in this at all. David Sullivan may well think that he's the man. He's the very man we need in the Championship. I don't know. I'm not sure how much of it is the truth and how much of it is sort of just backing your manager. But he's backed him. He doesn't need to back his manager any more publicly than he already has. I mean, David Moyes has got the safest job in football, really, hasn't he? I think it's fair to say that there ain't many. Pep, Guardiola. There's even talk. There was a point this season. I've got to say, even though at the point Liverpool was still in the Champions League, and they were still, I think, in the top 10, or maybe they were 10th in the Premier League. But there was a point this season where we were right near the bottom, which is obviously where we are. And Liverpool was... I thought there was a point this season when there was more likely that Jurgen Klopp would leave Liverpool and get the sack from Liverpool than words David Moyes get the sack from West Ham. It's clearly not going to happen. And you heard it here, the words again. A key source made it clear on 3 occasions there will be no change of manager now, or indeed should we drop. We'll deal with that tomorrow. But as it stands right now, the relegation strategy for West Ham United: keep David Moyes, implement the relegation clauses, which mean, I assume, everybody drops down to 50% wages. And of course, just wait and wait and wait until we drop to assess whether we offer players like Soufal, Lanzini, Ogbonna, Ben Johnson new deals. Let me know what you think in the comments below, please, and we'll discuss it further tomorrow.